Yeah, we do podcast news about stuff. Welcome.
Hi. Hi, how are you?
It's we out here. It's your boy
Wow.
Shrimpy with the white vans. Let's get it.
Yo, what's up? It's your favorite YouTuber, Spicy Pineapple 69.
What's going on, bros?
What's going on, guys? Alright. So, previously, you had mentioned, do you want my complete story with
Yeah.
Resident Evil 4?
Yeah, so let's start there. What was your first experience with Resident Evil 4? Like what got you into the game? When did you first hear about it? What made you want to play it? Shit like that.
So, as you know, and as I've discussed, gaming for me really didn't take off until I was in my almost late 20s, late teens. So, let's see, Resident Evil 4 was 2007, right?
5.
Was it 5?
Yeah.
Yeah, cough away, you bitch.
Sorry.
2005. I would have been 12-ish. And my brother is 13. And he would have gotten it first. I had an Xbox, he had a PS2. And it was his favorite game. And I didn't get it until I had a Wii, but I always liked it because my brother liked it.
Yeah.
And then I actually had the opportunity to sit down and play through it on the Wii, and I was like completely blown away that game was that old. Like, it was so good. The adventure was so good. It was just cheesy enough. It was just campy enough, and I just really enjoyed how it portrayed itself. And moving on in life, I had gotten a PS3 and I had played Resident Evil 1 remake and then later Resident Evil 2 remake, 3 remake, and it just bolstered my appreciation for just how weird Resident Evil 4 is. And I just really enjoy it because it has such a memorable history with me. And
Right.
then I remember fondly people coming over and me just handing them the Wiimote and the nunchuck and just be like, you need to play this. Like, you just need to play this.
It was one of those everybody's played it. It's a must. It's so there's a lot to see here kind of games that you show your friends for the extremity of it.
Yeah, and a lot of times it was their first experience with something in the realm of horror. It would be their first experience with something to this caliber. And then
I
the
always
whole
think that's a
time I'm
great
like,
start.
the whole time I'd be like, don't worry, it's also funny.
Yeah.
Like,
It's just can't be enough to be like a good introduction.
yeah. And we would do all-nighters playing it. Dunkel, or in this group, PK School Bus, we played it together. We played Doom together. We played all kinds of games together. And I still very fondly remember playing Resident Evil 4 on the Xbox 360, I believe, at my house. And it was just a good time. Like, it's always a good time.
Best copy of the game, by the way. Just got to throw that out there. Was the only console port with anti-aliasing. It doesn't have the bugs that the Steam HD version does. Best port of the game.
Wrong.
Facts. Until today, right? Because we're here to talk about the actual best port of the game.
They VR all day.
Yeah, VR all day. My first experience with Resident Evil 4 was a little bit different. I played it when it came out, right? So it would have been 2005, 2006, somewhere in that time frame. My brother came home with a GameCube, one of the first black GameCube consoles with the external port on the back. And it had a few games with it, not many that I remember, but the most notable ones were Shadow the Hedgehog, Metroid Prime, and Resident Evil 4.
And Super
I saw him
Robo Chibi.
Oh God.
Go ahead.
I saw him play Resident Evil 4 for the first time in front of our mom, right? And she was super big into horror stuff like that too. So it was an interesting thing all the way around for everybody. The beginning segment was all it was, him walking through the trail down into the village, getting his head cut off once by the dude. just to show off what the game was like and how things played out and shit.
Yeah.
And that was all I had seen of the game for a couple years. Come around like 2008, I played it for the first time, and I was so fucking trash at it and so terrified of it that I couldn't play past that village segment. I just couldn't live through that. And then one day, when I turned like 11, it snapped in my head. I woke up. I decided I was going to play through the whole thing, and I did. And that first experience really stuck with me because it's one of those moments in gaming where I finally felt like I was like, okay, I'm confident enough in myself and my skills to feel like I can beat this if I really put my mind to it.
Oh yeah.
If I just put like everything aside. And it turned out to be not only the first game I beat, but it was the first game I 100%ed because it was worth it. It was such a memorable experience for me.
Oh yeah, there's so much content. I mean, you have mercenaries mode, you have the Ada Wong files. There's so
All of
much
the firing range
there.
stuff, the
Yeah, the
bottle
firing
caps.
range. And I didn't have any games like that up until that point. I hadn't played anything to that caliber. And
Nobody
seeing
had. It was so extreme to see something so advanced for the time.
right. And I was just like in awe at how much game was packed into that game. Because up to that point, I had played so many party games. I think the most open world or fully fleshed out game would be like Mario 64 or Ocarina of Time.
Said you had played a lot of Fantasy Star before that point. That'd be a little bit fleshed out, but it wasn't nearly as full,
Well, I
I
played.
guess.
We don't have to go into the details just because of private reasons, but
Yeah.
I played Fantasy Star Dreamcast MMO. Just
Yeah.
so we're clear, yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of like an open experience, but it's still not quite the same caliber. It was still a few years before. There was a lot of the online is a totally different impact than just how much game was packed into how much detail Resident Evil 4 had.
Yeah. And I mean, Fantasy Star Online for the Dreamcast was really good.
A very, very good looking game.
But it's one of those extreme repetitives. It's the
Yeah.
same monotonous grind. It's the same as the majority of live services today, which is a broad stroke, and I understand that. But when you've put in thousands of hours into what was MMO/live service, that's just kind of how you feel at that point.
Instead, you can spend like 6 hours, play through a Resident Evil game a couple of times, learn the path once or twice, and then play through it again like in an hour or two any other time after that, just for the enjoyment of the experience. And like the repetition only comes to you if you go looking for the repetition, if you speed run it, if you push yourself playing it, shit like
Yeah.
that.
And that's where the VR game really shined with me. Being somebody who had played the Wii version probably the majority of the time, having those movement controls along with the head tracking and the controllers and seeing it from a new perspective just really told me once again Resident Evil 4 is a masterpiece.
I love how above and beyond the port developers went with the VR port specifically, because there's so many physics everywhere. There's so much intuition. All of the uh, quick time events that everybody you hated before have Wii style interactions where you're dividing your controllers and swinging them in opposite directions, or the few where you press the triggers down. There's such a diverse collection of really finite detail and inclusion added on the part of the devs. I had mentioned to you in a past conversation about the harpoon gun during the Del Lago fight. Very, very great addition. I don't feel like that fight could have been done the traditional way with you picking up and throwing the harpoon, just because it didn't fit in with the rest of the game. It would have felt way out of place.
The only way I could have seen that working with you physically throwing it would be like you pull down the trigger and it locks onto a position and then you physically throw it and it always hits the position you locked it onto. Because it being thrown willy-nilly would not have worked.
And all of the movement on the boat, you really get thrown around. Like if you have motion sickness, that segment is really hell and a half.
Don't they? It gives you a prompt. Do you want this to be third person and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. You can watch it from the outside perspective as if you were playing it from the game view, and it's a different experience.
Yeah, they went a little bit above and beyond in many regards in that aspect to really encompass the fact that this is a VR title. Like, this is a VR title.
Yeah.
They need to recognize that the user base for VR is broad spectrum. Everybody experiences VR differently because of nausea, motion sickness, vertigo, etc.
That being said, as a guy who plays a lot of VR games, as somebody who enjoys VR, there are some things that I would do, not even differently, just things that I would do that you could add in now in later updates because it's still a fairly new game,
Right.
right? I would add the ability to free climb ladders, for one. I would add the ability to turn on sight when you're jumping down from a high space. There are some things that broke immersion for me. I would add the ability to make the perspective spin in first person when Leon goes in for a kick or something of that nature. You know, instead of cutting to behind Leon's back to do it. There are some things that,
Like optional style.
yeah, optional things that would help the immersive side of the game. There's a lot of comfort centric things there, but on the opposite end of the spectrum, they lacked a little bit on the immersion front.
I think I'm okay with it. I wouldn't mind having those options there, of course. I agree with you, especially if it's an
Okay
optional
with
choice.
most of it. I'm okay with most of it. But I get to moments where, like in the church, right? Jumping from the chandelier over to the balcony, again, is all done from perspective and it never cuts and it looks really nice. The immersion is there. I can feel what's underneath me as if it were moving underneath me.
Right.
And then immediately following that, you jump down a ladder where all it does is cut to black and you're at the floor and my immersion is broken again.
Yeah, I mean,
Eh,
that's fair enough argument. Never break eye line or something like that.
yeah, there is just some things like that that kind of took me out of it a little bit. But other than that, the experience itself, the core gameplay mechanics are fantastic.
The best.
Yeah, there's
It
dual wielding.
there's yeah, you can akimbo weapons, the rocket launchers you fire with your left hand. There's accurate weapon portrayal.
Yeah,
I mean,
um, throwing the mine darts with the mine launcher with both hands instead of just one, as you would probably do with the thing.
yeah, the sniper rifle as well. If you look down the sights with one hand and you fire it, juts really high upward. There's a lot of little things that make it feel really good.
I never thought I'd be terrified playing Resident Evil 4 again. And then I got to the sewer section of the castle with the bugs, and man, was that fucking tense. That's one of those sections where, even during the regular game, a little bit of tension kicks on, even now, all these years later.
That's funny that you say that because that is not where my attention kicked in. Mine was with the regenerator section.
I'm gonna have a lot of fun with that.
That part really if you go back and watch the playthrough, I just stand there and I'm just like, I do not want to fuck with this at all.
Um, Ashley is too slow.
She also
I
looks
cannot.
kind of weird.
Yeah, she's smaller than you, and she's too slow. And I cannot stress enough just how not good that is for the gameplay flow. Her hitbox is so far away from yours, right? That if you run out in front of something that will arc behind you because you've run out in front of it, she'll get hit by it.
Right.
In the castle segment, while they're flinging catapult things at you, I kept having that problem where she would get hit, and there was not much I could do about it because, I mean, you can't really make her go faster. It was a lot of making her stand and wait. You could attribute that to good gameplay, right? But then you're taking what was already a good escort quest, which nobody likes an escort quest anyway. But you're taking what was a good escort quest and you're adding a level of tedium to it that makes it a little bit harder to do. I can see the argument to be made for strategy and difficulty, but it's more a hindrance than it is an enjoyable experience, and that's a problem.
I'm 50-50 on that because I really didn't mind, telling Ashley to wait and running up ahead and then going back. And I felt like I was a little bit more immersed in those aspects by communicating with Ashley and putting her in specific positions to protect her.
I'm a Resident Evil 4 speedrunner.
Well, yeah,
There
of
were some
course.
sections that went exactly as I expected, and some sections that went totally the opposite of how I expected. I moments with Ashley were the parts where I really was like, this is so much different. This is a totally different game than it was before. The section where you play as Ashley is an incredibly tense moment
Oh
for
yeah,
me.
that was oh, but that slide puzzle, it's just such a waste of time for me.
Yeah,
I that
I've
should
got
have
it.
been removed, in my
I've got
opinion.
it down. It's easy enough once you know the pattern. It's the same every time. Like,
It's just I don't like slide puzzles. Slide puzzles is
yeah,
not
nobody
good
does.
gameplay. Don't put that in your game.
Yeah,
Speaking of, there's a
it was
really
bad.
cool adventure indie game where like you have it's a slide puzzle indie game where you like slide the puzzle across the water and you have to like build the land bridges and stuff like that. That was pretty cool.
Bridge Constructor Portal.
No. No, stop. I honestly do think that Resident Evil 4 VR is the definitive edition. Like if anybody came to me and they're like, "What should I play Resident Evil 4 on?" I mean,
Get an
obviously,
Oculus Quest just for it. Like there was no reason for me to buy a Quest 2 before this game. And it even took me a little while after it came out to get around to getting it. But it is the single reason I bought a Quest 2. I would have stuck with my Quest 1 permanently had it not come out.
permanently?
Permanently.
Wow.
Because it's still a great headset. There's nothing wrong with my Quest 1.
Really?
Yeah.
Except for the fact that it's a Quest 1, right?
Well, I mean, even then, it doesn't matter. Oculus Link works fine on my overpowered PC, so I can play everything I want to.
That's true. That's true.
Minus Half-Life Alyx, because fuck that. That just got to take so much resource. I don't have a graphics card for that.
You will one day.
One day.
But I mean, honestly, if you're gonna play Resident Evil 4 and if you haven't done your research, Oculus Quest 2 is by and large one of the best purchases for virtual reality right now. Sure, you can go spend $1,000 and you can get Steam, whatever, and you can go get a HTV or whatever HTC Vive, but really you don't need it. Like nothing's taking advantage of all that crazy technology. Like
Yeah, it's very of itself. It uses its hardware properly, which is
right.
great.
And I have yet to have a bad experience. And I used to have the three sensors. I used to have the now Chris has it, but it was nice. Don't get me wrong, like having, but there's nothing wrong with my Quest 2. It works perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I gave it to Chris is because I gave it to him for $100. Come on, VR for $100, can't go wrong.
I think these days it's like fuck consoles. Consoles lost the console war and Quest 2 won.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That
Steam Deck and Quest 2. It's the greatest combination you could have right now.
Yeah, they won the console wars. Everybody who's stuck to a PlayStation or an Xbox should move on and do something a little more advanced with their lives.
I was actually kind of writing a script, which I haven't done in a long time, that was literally just discussing how you could have a cell phone, a decent cell phone, an Oculus Quest 2, and a Steam Deck, and that is everything you need for a really, 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 really good gaming experience. That's it.
You could have a fantastic, you'd be stuck there for hours and you'd never want to do anything else.
There's the gaming is unlimited at that point.
Yeah.
You take it one step further, that was really loud, by the way. You could take
I
it.
can um I can look back at a time when I was a heavy-handed console gamer, and I was still defending consoles late into their timeline. And I look back, the Xbox 360 and PS3 were the last ones to really make a difference. And now we have things that are trying to actually advance technology. This is the console advance that everybody wants.
I disagree
This
with
is
you.
what everybody has been expecting of consoles for the longest time.
Isn't that crazy that I disagree with you?
Eh, it's an opinion. Wow, people have opinions.
I honestly,
Whoa.
I honestly think the greatest time to switch to PC was PS2 and Xbox original. That is my honest opinion. Like, Xbox 360 did nothing for me. There were good games. PS3 did nothing for me. There were some good games, but at the end of the day, I was putting thousands of hours into games on PC
It
already.
was it was the end of the IBM CPU era. It was the end of a lot of youth growing up and becoming better gamers and shit. Like a lot of people who bought Xbox 360s were gamers who were 17 or 16 at the time who had grown up playing video games, right? And speaking from experience, like you really don't get into PC unless you grow up on PC. You really don't get into PC until you get older.
May I ask you to double check your crisp? Your keyboard is kind of loud. Um, I don't know because I have quite a few friends who recently just got a laptop and were like, "Oh, I could plug a controller into this." And I was like, "No shit, you can plug a controller into a computer. All consoles are computers."
Yeah,
Like, what?
that's a fact. Especially now, all consoles are literally computers with AMD hardware. That's just how that is.
Pretty fucking much. It's just it's frustrating. And I'm older. I'm gonna be 30. We've gone over this. It doesn't surprise you that I say that the Xbox 360 and PS3 were not this
Yeah,
incredible
we've got
gaming experience as everybody makes it out to be.
yeah, we've got this 8-year difference, right?
Yeah.
And I might have rose-tinted glasses because that was the generation of consoles I grew up with the most. 2005 to 2013 is the time I remember the most fondly about video games.
Right. But even like, okay, people were like talking about Oblivion on the Xbox 360, and I was like, okay. And I went and I bought it on Steam. And I was like,
And it
well,
had Bloom and HDR and fucking
mods and HDR wasn't a
view
thing yet, but well, it was kind
render
of a thing.
distance. Game of the Year edition came out 1 year after the original Oblivion release. It had
Right.
HDR support.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. I
Yeah.
was still playing on a TV though, so I guess. But man, like people would come over and they were like, "Oh, let's play Oblivion," and I would pull up Oblivion on the computer, and they were just like, "What the fuck? Oh my god!" And I was like, "Yeah." Like even then, PC was genuinely just a better experience. Fallout
It was
3, Fallout New Vegas were all incredible on PC with
that's
mods and
That's less why I think it was the most impactful generation, but that's because like I was on the side of the Xbox 360 where indie games thrived, where I was buying games specifically from the indie and arcade categories that were exclusive to the Xbox 360 at the time that
right,
never did. Some of them still now haven't seen PC releases that I look back on extremely fondly. You know, there are a lot of things that you can only get on Xbox 360 still. And the same can be said for PS3, you
yeah,
know?
it,
I guess you could say the same thing about the next couple generations after that, but the impact isn't as substantial. We got hundreds of developers from the Xbox Live indie games category. They all went on to work on a lot of the games that you love now.
right. But that's the same thing for the PC space. Like indie games have been around since they were playing them off of cassette tapes. Like
At the beginning of time, when video game consoles were brand new, and what's his name developed the Magnavox Odyssey. He was an indie developer. The very first video game console was an indie video game console with indie video games. And they weren't even technically video games. It was an analog lit square that displayed under certain patterns by certain code. And then along comes Nintendo with the Magnavox Odyssey light gun to get people immersed. That was with the original VR, if you can believe that. They had Nintendo handed you a light gun and told you here, video games.
a video game. I want to
Fun fact.
play Resident Evil 4 on a Magnavox Odyssey with a light gun.
Oh my god.
Make it happen.
Square, square. Just imagine, just play the Magnavox Odyssey shooting range and imagine it's Resident Evil 4
No, somebody
because
has to
there are
make
no
it.
graphics.
Make it with vector graphics. Line
It didn't
art.
display vector graphics. It was analog.
You're a
It was an
Vectrex.
it was an analog light box.
It's just this conversation is so diluted with everybody's opinion at this point that I don't even feel like it's really worth it to even have the conversation. It's the same thing with like when people talk about mobile games. You and I obviously have a very different perspective on mobile games
I think
because
mobile games are trash and always have been.
and I still say we don't live in the iPhone 4 days. A lot of mobile games are also on PC. You don't even know you're playing a mobile game until somebody tells you in most
Yeah,
cases.
it's very hypocritical of me to say that considering how much Valorant I play.
Right. Valorant literally was designed to be played on phones, and then last minute they were like, eh. I don't know. It's just one of my favorite videos on my YouTube channel is me holding up my new phone, and the fact that my phone is more powerful than most people's computers just goes to say a lot. It's more
Yeah.
powerful than a Switch. My phone has 12 gigabytes of RAM. It runs Switch
We've come
games.
We've come a very long way, and it's not too expensive to do something better for yourself. You don't have to spend $1,000 looking for a PlayStation 5 when a Steam Deck is absolutely better.
Yeah,
for way less.
$400. I actually
I hate to be the guy in the room who's blunt, but fuck you and your Series X and S and your PlayStation 5. And I'm a huge Microsoft fan, right?
right.
But screw console.
Not worth it. It's not. Like I was just talking to Meep, and you can get an i3 10105F, which is just about as fast as a Ryzen 5800X, which by the way, 2 years ago was the fastest CPU, and it's an i3.
Damn.
You can go on eBay and spend $200 on a 780 Ti. Are you overpaying? Yes, but it's technically better than a 1063 gigabyte, which is still
I
regarded as a modern graphics card.
I took a 10-year-old all-in-one Gateway ZX 6900, put an eGPU dock that cost me $30 on it, used my 750 Ti, my $40 750 Ti on the back of it, with a $30 power supply for like fucking 4 years now. Right, but I finally upgraded the graphics card on it. Eventually, I added a full 16 gigabytes of RAM to it. It's got an i7 860 instead of the i3 or the i3 540 it had inside of it before.
Three?
And right now, as it stands, it's still a very medium range usable PC. That's a lot better than what a lot of people use.
Right.
It's sad that something so jank and so slapped together is a better experience than my Xbox One, but that is unfortunately the case.
Right. I mean, as probably one of the reasons why, like, people always yell at you when you're a PCMR, but like, when you look at things critically and you look at things without rose tinted glasses and you take a look at the actual
Right,
prices realistically, it is a better bang for your buck. I mean, you're getting
right.
free online
I took
play,
a look at
unlimited backwards compatibility, massive indie catalogs, massive free games,
I'd like to
tons
point
of
out that I
charity options.
I'd like to point out that I built this PC before I started building my own PC, and I put a
Mm-hmm.
lot of work into it. You can attest to this. I
It's
put
a fact.
hours of work into it, did a ton of overclocking and underclocking and messing with the dock and all of the optimization to keep it running for a long ass time. I really took a gamble on the power supply that I bought for it. And I did all of that to see if proof of concept was right. If I could take something I already had, spend a little bit of money on it, and get a way better experience than what I already had for a cheaper price than what I would have paid for what I have.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this. I am kind of copying your project. I have a old AMD laptop that has a mini PCIX, so I'm going to be putting a dock on it and kind of messing around with that as well.
Good shit. I recommend cheap power supplies come. You don't need a lot to power just a graphics card.
I'm
That's
a
a
PC
fact.
builder. I got plenty of power supplies downstairs.
Yeah.
I have
You
like
don't need a lot
six
to
graphics cards.
yeah. There's an option out there that isn't what it is, right? That isn't what just is just thrown in your face every year, every 5, 6, 10 years, whenever a new console comes out.
Right.
I've lost track. They don't have a schedule.
Well, even if like I have friends who are extremely budget oriented, they just don't have that kind of money. And it's like they go on Facebook Marketplace and they'll grab a business computer with like, a seller on gold, and they'll put
A
like a
fucking
1050 Ti in it, and they'll game with me all day. Like
yeah. Get
side panel
yourself like
open.
an old Optiplex or an old Lenovo or something that's just sitting around, something with a quad core Xeon or an i5 2400 or something. And slap a cheap 1050 Ti or a 750 Ti in it or something. You can get 754 gigabytes for like $80 right now, and they're really good. They're not great. They're not as good as say an R9 290 or a 784 gigabyte or anything like that, but they're still decent enough to handle pretty much everything you want to throw at it if you're a really light budget oriented gamer.
783 gigabyte. The 780 was a 2 gigabyte card. um, yeah, yeah. I mean, even in terms of like
I
the
said
PS.
784 gigabyte. There is in fact a
No
784 gigabyte.
way, there is.
Yeah.
Holy shit, there is GDDR6 too.
Yeah.
Okay, I learned something today. That's expensive. Wow. Oh, look at them. They're little small cards. Even if you put a GT 1030 in it.
Yeah,
I mean,
GT 1030s aren't. I hate to be, everybody shits on the low end GT line because they're not the greatest things in the world. You measure their performance with like a 4800U, an AMD 4800U in a laptop, and the performance is going to be a little bit less than that.
oh, yeah.
But it'll still be better than having no display at all if you have a decent CPU without graphics.
There's just really no excuse at this point. With the Steam Deck being $400, with computers that rival mine in the CPU speeds being $400, like everybody's like, "Oh, PCs are so expensive right now," but they're not. They're really not.
They're
They're
not.
cheaper than I've ever seen them at this point.
Graphics cards have even gone down, and with the announcement of Intel's Alchemist line of GPUs dropping soon, dude, they're getting ever cheaper. Start looking at PCs. Maybe don't buy yet. Wait a little bit of time, man, but start looking at PCs. You'll find something.
Okay, maybe not a
Don't
1030.
don't buy a pre-built and avoid uh who are the artesian PC builds. Yeah,
Yeah,
avoid those.
just avoid anybody who's
Avoid pre-builts.
yeah, doing pre-builds. Like the shipping causes issues. They don't know how to do BIOSes apparently. Every single test has shown that they don't know how to configure a BIOS. And
Do you remember when Walmart shipped out their pre-builts with the graphics cards unplugged?
yeah, I was buying those up left and right and rebuilding them and reselling them. They were when they were hitting clearance, dude, all day.
They
All
were good
day.
hardware for what they were. They were just wrong. They were just done wrong.
I was stripping them down, taking the motherboards out, taking the RAM out, and just compiling them all into better PCs, doing all the BIOS work, and selling them for $300 more.
That
And
kind of puts things into perspective. You could have bought the Walmart off-brand PC, and as long as you knew what to do with it, it was cheap for the parts
oh,
that were
cheap
inside of
as
it.
dirt. And I remember because people would message me and they'd be like, "Oh, you're just a scalper selling Walmart PCs," and I'd be like, No, like actually read the spec list. They all had upgraded motherboards, maxed out RAM, and I had like videos showing that I was redoing the entire specs and doing a side by side of a base model versus my builds, and the performance gains were like 38% faster across the
Yeah.
board.
You weren't just taking and reselling Walmart PCs. You were taking and reselling a better product that Walmart could have done themselves if they had hired anybody with some configuration competency.
Oh, but why would they do that?
Because who has time for employing somebody smart, right? Who has time for checking a resume?
Right. What a world we live in. Yeah, I highly, highly, highly recommend to just about everyone, like hop on Newegg, use user benchmark. Understand that user benchmark shouldn't be the holy grail of understanding components, but it'll give
And
you a
also, but also
general
like
idea.
and also understand how user benchmark works. It's comparing not your PC to other PCs built the same. Well, it is kind of, but it's comparing your specific parts to other specific parts of the exact same variety that have clocked in at similar numbers.
Right.
It's part by part. There's a lot of technicality that goes into choosing what you use as a benchmark.
Not to
But
mention it's a median, so it's taking into account for
I
overclock
cannot
errors and
stress
things like
this
that.
enough. The only benchmark numbers you need to worry about are your use case scenarios. The frame rate you should be getting for the games and products that you are going to be playing and using.
Oh,
Look up your specific scenario.
can we real quick just turn the table and talk about monitors and peripherals?
Don't buy a bad keyboard. Don't buy a bad keyboard and mouse. You'll regret it.
I see this so often, I can't even believe it. When I get requests to build studios, when I get requests to build PCs and things like that, and I'll bring it over and they have a VGA monitor. They have monitors that are so old or TVs that they want to recycle. And I understand recycling and I'm all for it. But when it comes to polling rate, when it comes to milliseconds of display, refresh rate, like that's amazing.
Resolution even.
Oh yeah,
There are a lot of
resolution.
resolutions that Windows just is really wonky with. Like I'm a 1610 advocate, but there are still a lot of problems with 1610 monitors.
You're right. But man, like, okay, cool. You want to build this supercomputer that'll do 140 frames per second in modern titles. I'm all for that. but do not then ask me to get you a 55 hertz, 5 millisecond, 27-inch LED panel. Like, it's not happening. I'm going to try to talk you out of it, and I'm probably not going to do that job for you because you don't understand technology and you won't listen to an IT expert in the regard. You have no reason to overbuild when your display and your HDMI and everything is just being completely bottlenecked with a bad monitor.
Yeah. There's no reason to try upgrading hardware that isn't the problem.
Why would you over synchronize your monitor and just cause more issues? There is a literal video of a TV blowing up on my stream because I chose to run it at 60 frames per second and it just overheated. It just could not do it.
Unfortunate.
But I wanted to bring that up because it is one of, if not the most annoying thing I deal with. Because that's great. Everybody wants, 2K, 4K, HDR, crazy frame rates, but they're not willing to spend that kind of money to actually make their hardware work visually. It doesn't work visually if you don't put the right stuff with it. I don't care if
Yeah.
you're getting 270 frames per second in a game. If your monitor is 60 frames per second and 5 milliseconds of polling, it's bad. It's not a good experience. You just learned this lesson. You just bought a brand new monitor and you immediately was like, this is so much better. You would like literally went on for like an hour about how you love your new monitor.
I was the biggest skeptic. I was almost certain that you couldn't even see 144 hertz no matter how hard you tried. And I was wrong. I'm willing to admit I was wrong.
And it's not just
It
seeing, it's feeling.
it's feeling. It is a vastly superior experience. You can feel yourself reacting in real time.
Right.
The longer you play on something, the more you notice just how broken your reactions are. And a lot of people blame the game for being broken, blame the hitboxes, blame call somebody a hacker because they did wrong or something. And a lot of the time it's just bad peripherals. Get a better monitor, mouse, and keyboard, and I swear to fucking God, you will have a better experience. Even if you're only playing at 30 frames a second, having a better monitor, mouse, and keyboard will make that experience better.
And it's the same thing with consoles. Like I see it pretty often. People buy the Xbox Series X, the PS5, and they'll hook it up to their 1080p no game mode TV, and then they wonder why it's a bad experience. It's because you don't have the hardware to support what you're buying. Like
You're playing with such a big delay that nothing you do matters.
I was just playing the PS4 and I was talking about this because I cannot have a good experience with the PS4 because it does not output at good frame rates. It does not pull fast enough. I can't do it.
Yeah.
I think it's like a 24 millisecond pull per frame. It's ridiculous. It's so slow. Playing Last of Us 1 and 2 recently has been absolutely torture on my brain because everything is just too slow. I can't do it. And I finished the stream. If you actually watched just the ending of my Last of Us Part 2 stream, I literally just sit there and I'm like, I'm so happy I have 3 more games to play. Two of them are, it's just Spider-Man. It won't matter. It's Spider-Man and Ghost of Tsushima. It'll be fine. Ghost of Tsushima, I'll be able to deal with it. But I am just so happy I don't have to touch it anymore. After this, I'm done.
Rip.
And I can sell it. I can get some money for it. I'll keep my library because they're all collectibles in my heart. I'm done.
And we have emulators. We live in the world of emulators. We talked about this.
Right. Go ahead.
There's a console for everything on your PC. Even if it was exclusive at some point, it likely isn't anymore because there's an emulator for that. If you feel better buying a physical copy first, go for it, but you don't need to own a PS3 to play PS3 games anymore. I hate to inform you, our PCS3 has been in the works for a long time and works really well.
It also runs on the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I I I personally advocate everybody. This is how I feel. If you're going to emulate something, please purchase it. Please purchase it. Have a proof of purchase. Own a copy of the license. It makes me feel better just saying that because that's what I personally do. That's all. all I gotta say.
For the lessons we learned today, Resident Evil 4 is the best when you play it in VR. The Steam Deck and the Quest 2 are the best consoles of the generation. If you're still buying video game consoles, just don't and buy a PC.
Right.
It not even for everyone else, just for your own benefit. You are cheating yourself out of a better experience.
And
I'm telling you.
come to the
Yeah.
Discord. Come to the Discord. Probably every single week, I am throwing together cheap PC builds for people. I'm putting in the game store massive game bundles for the cheap. I constantly talk to people about saving money, how I'm able to afford buying these crazy PCs because I take advantage of the market. I share all of that in the Discord as often as
And
it's available.
there are more than one of us capable of answering questions about things you might have. You
Right.
know, questions about your PC before the fact or after the fact, questions about what other people's experiences switching to PC and if it was good for them, just to give yourself a perk up before you go trying to make a change. You don't even have to switch from PC. Do what I did. I still used my Xbox. My Xbox died the other night. Unfortunate. Ripped my Xbox 2013 to
I almost bought it.
2022. It lived a long uh I used my Xbox for the forever alongside my PC because you don't have to change. You don't have to not use your console. Just fucking get a PC to have a better experience.
Yeah.
Use them both. Find a use case for them.
It's why I always say jump on Facebook Market. If you don't have Facebook, jump on eBay. Look for whatever build business PCs because if you can slot a graphics card in it, just slot a graphics card in it. Install the drivers, explore games, hop on itch.io, hop on Steam, hop on Humble Bundle. There are tons and tons of old games, tons and tons of arcade games. If you don't love it, it's not a big deal because with websites like CD Keys, you can spend $30 and get modern games. Games are
And
just cheaper.
if all you fucking play is Apex Legends and Call of Duty Warzone and shit,
Get a
get a
PC.
PC because you'll have a better experience and you'll probably have an easier time getting kills and winning. And your experience will be less frustrating for you in the long run.
Not to mention the fact that it's free online play.
Yeah, you don't have to pay for an online server service to guide you through and hold your hand. You can make the argument that, oh, hackers are running more rampant, but have you ever done any research at all? Do you know what an anti-cheat is? Not everybody likes having easy anti-cheat installed, but it does keep all of those hackers that you hate so much out of your Warzone game.
Yeah, it
Just
segregates them
saying.
to their own servers.
Yeah.
And they don't even know it half the time.
Yeah, and then they get banned later for hacking in an already hacked server. It's good karma. And
It's just
you,
oof.
the viable consumer, get to sit back and enjoy it.
Right. It's just it's such a bizarre world that we live in where you have these I don't want to say fanboyism, but like exclusivity logic where they're like, "Oh, I grew up with Xbox, so I will only play Xbox." Well, guess what? Xbox is owned by Microsoft. They also
Yeah,
own Alienware. They're
yeah,
a massive, massive, massive PC consumer market. Like they're if not one of the biggest. And
yeah.
Xbox is on PC. Like what do you
And
want?
get this. You can also on your PC play YouTube and check a web page and use Discord
And do your
all at the
taxes.
exact same time. You don't have to close applications every time you open something new and wait forever because consoles are freezing and shitting themselves just trying to load their own operating systems.
Right? I never understood that. It's so bad. They're all this Linux based garbage.
Oh, I'm sorry, Xbox operating system. I didn't know you ran over Windows 8 for some reason and you're just a skin. It doesn't even need to be a separate operating system. They could have just reskinned Windows 8, but no, it's its own operating system that starts a Windows 8 fork when you start a game. And it's garbage.
Gotta have a hypervisor.
Yeah, exactly. Gotta have a hypervisor, lockout hardware to make
Oh my
sure that
god.
You can't even so much as put the wrong USB drive in the thing without it being unrecognized and incompatible.
It's why I've been saying for the longest time consoles are built for children. I know that's not true, but it just feels like it. Like, oh, you can't put your little flash drive in the flash drive drop. It won't work because whatever
Consoles
reason.
are built for vanity.
Oh, yeah, well,
They,
that's
some
a fair.
people buy them for convenience, but consoles are built for vanity.
Inconvenience is not a valid argument. It's not.
Not
Like,
anymore. No, for even my Nintendo Switch, I used to make the argument my Nintendo Switch was the most convenient option for me as having a portable option at the time because I don't like cell phones, right?
right.
And even that isn't true anymore because the Steam Deck is clearly a better option now.
I would have argued for years it wasn't even the best option because you had decent laptops, but you don't like laptops.
Yeah. And
But
I wanted something I could hold in my hand. The GPD Win was out, but
as I was gonna
it was
say,
also double the price, right? So it came down to price convenience mix for me when I bought my Switch Lite, and I love it, but I can think of 5 moments in the 3 years I've had it when I've actually fucking used it.
it's because it's useless.
Yeah.
It's literally useless. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna take it with you to a business meeting and set it up and show your homework and your presentation off of your Switch? No, but you know
Play
what you can
Pokemon
do?
for 10 seconds while I'm bored as fuck and have literally nothing else to do because Pokemon is a last resort kind of game these days.
It's why I've always said, do you know why I play on PC? Because I pay taxes.
Yeah. Yeah, I fucking pay my due. I pay my taxes. We're here.
I have
We're adults who who like to enjoy things.
I just have a lot better things to do than own a console that is just limiting my user experience. It's not worth it. And
Yeah,
they're glorified Netflix boxes at this point. I
it's
know
true.
so many people who have an Xbox and I
I
never see them play it.
I have to be totally honest. I said I was using my Xbox One, and I did play Morrowind for a couple hours one night, but it was all YouTube. I would put YouTube on when I went to bed, and that was all of the use my Xbox One got for years.
I mean, I get it. I do. But why an Xbox? Like why not just a really cheap laptop?
You know what the funniest
Like
thing about that is? I have a PC sitting on top of my Xbox over there that's been sitting there forever, just turned off. So the other night when my Xbox died, it was as easy as plug this PC in, plug an Ethernet cable in, plug an HDMI cable in, bam, PC replaced by Xbox.
no, Xbox replaced by PC. You said it backwards. Oh, fuck. And it's so bizarre because I know we're gonna get hate comments. We're gonna get people on the console side who
The
hate that.
PlayStation is better than your PC because Master Race.
Yeah, like the master race argument is illogical. PCMR anti PCMR is illogical. Like these conversations are being had not for our benefit. That's what people don't understand. We're not benefiting us by convincing you to switch to PC. We're
Yeah, all of this
benefiting
is
you.
frustrating. Yeah. We hate to repeat it over and over and over again, but the point just doesn't seem to get reinforced that computer hardware is logistically superior.
Right.
Sorry. That's just a sad fact for everyone stuck to a console like it's the 90s.
Because guess what? You have bills to pay, you have taxes to pay, you have shit to do and shit to make.
And if you say
Just,
Xbox Live Gold is one of those bills, just don't.
just don't.
Just don't.
It's not
I
a real
support
argument.
Xbox, but Game Pass is on PC now, and there's cloud gaming. So all of those Game Pass games you would normally play on your Xbox can just be played on your PC with an Xbox controller.
I just bought the Ukrainian support bundle on itch.io. It's 34 pages of games for 10
Yeah,
bucks.
900 and something games for $10. All some very recognizable titles like Super Hot and Celeste and shit.
Right.
And
Like
it's all going to humanitarian effort. That's incredible.
just the other day I bought stuff off of Humble Bundle. Same thing. AAA titles all going over to support the Ukrainian efforts. I just went and bought Elden Ring and it was 40 bucks. Like There is no argument for console. The reality of the situation is PC is at the end of the day the cheapest and the best option. Will you pay more for the product, the actual PC itself? That depends. What are you building for?
Yeah, what do you intend to play? That is what the entirety of building a PC or buying a PC is centered around.
And
Because
there
I'm not the laptop guy, but even I would make the argument a good gaming laptop that'll play what you want it to play is better than your console
and if
and probably cheaper.
oh yeah, absolutely. I was just at Walmart the other day and they had i3 10 or 1650 Ti laptops for 380.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. I'll hop onto eBay right now, search laptop, and I guarantee you, I'll find something that looks decent for a decent price.
My old laptop I got when I bought my PS4, I went and bought a laptop as well because I needed one. And was that PS4? Yeah, it was PS4. It was right when it came out. Um, it was a GT 750, 1 or 2 gigabyte with an i5, and that lasted me 12 years. The
Yeah.
PS4 died. I had to get a new PS4. That PS4 died, and I'm on my third PS4. And I do not put that many hours in my PS4.
No, yeah. There are Dell Latitudes with old NVIDIA graphics going for like $100 right now.
Right.
Things with i7s for i7 Q840, 16 gigabyte of RAM, 128 gigabyte SSD, 1 terabyte HDD, and an NVIDIA GT something or other from that lineup. That is an incredible deal and price for the deal. It's on auction right now at $67, right? With one bid going for another 4 days. And I guarantee fucking to you, the person who buys this for under $100 is going to be more than satisfied with their purchase.
Let's not forget, it's a computer. If you don't like it for games, it's still a computer.
Yeah. Do your freaking taxes. Use it to research stuff. People always complain that they don't have computers to print things out or take things to or get emails or shit like that, and their phone isn't as useful for that shit, right? And then they proceed to go and buy like a video game console and an iPhone and not a computer, which would be the logical thing to do, which would solve all of their problems.
I've come into that situation so many times. Oh my god. When okay, so I just sold my last RX 460, right?
E.
And the guy came over and he's like, "Okay, here's the PC, blah blah blah." Mind you, this is not a good PC. It was brand new, like good hardware. It was an HP Pavilion base model computer, right? And he
E.
was just buying the RX 460 because all he was interested in was League of Legends, Dota, CS:GO, Valorant, very light games, not nothing that would be too crazy. And I was like, you should probably have contacted an IT guy before you bought the computer because this card is not going in that computer. And he's like, well, why? Why can't you do it? And I opened it and it's like literal metal panels blocking everything. And they just have like the HDD in like a terrible location. And I was like, they are specifically designing these computers so people like myself can't upgrade them to screw you into purchasing their higher end models.
Same argument to never buy a fucking MacBook or a Mac and an iMac, right? Because they're not serviceable. You physically cannot even open them to clean them, which is an essential thing to do if you have a computer.
Well, you
Just
can. You
blow
just
the fucking dust out of it once in a while, but Apple won't even let you do that because they want you to pay money
right.
for Apple Care.
Just don't buy Apple.
Don't buy Apple. Yeah, don't buy Apple. Don't buy anything by Apple. They're just bad.
Go look up the OnePlus Nord 7T Pro. That's the phone that I have. I think I paid $330 for it. It has 12 gigabytes of RAM. Its CPU and graphical processor is faster than the Nintendo Switch. It's running modern Android. It'll play whatever game I put on it, and it has 128 gigabytes. You want to know what I've been doing with this phone? I've been playing Dragon Ball Z Fusions from the 3D or the DS. I've been playing Pokemon MMO. I've been playing PS2 games, GameCube games like Luigi's Mansion on it. And all I did was bought a $20 USB-C controller that you snap onto it.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's all you fucking need. There are so many better options out there, man, and not everyone is getting the option that would be the best for them.
No.
They're hindering their own experiences doing it. It might be you, might not be you. You might be happy with the experience you're getting. That's there's an argument to be made for that. You might just be happy with what you have, and if you are, that's fine, man. That's your opinion.
Right.
But don't be out here trying to tell me that it's physically better than my hardware because it's not.
There is absolutely no way you have a console better than my computer. It's just
Yeah,
not
it just
happening.
doesn't. That's no,
That's not how
it
that
doesn't
works.
exist.
You don't have something better than a 3080 Ti and an Ryzen 5800X. It's just not happening. 32 gigabytes of RAM clocked at 3000 megahertz. Sure, the RAM's a little bit slow, but like the end of the day, you are not
You,
topping that.
you make the argument that my PC right now, because of my graphics card, is a little bit slower than a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Series X. And you know what? You'd be right. It is. It's a little bit slower. But I could spend way less money than you'd spend on a new Xbox just buying a graphics card to slap in place of the one I have. And immediately I'd be 4 years ahead of you.
Not to mention you have to downclock your CPU just for it to work right. And even then you're like twice the speed of a PS5 CPU right now.
Yeah, I had to my CPU was running so intensely, right, that I had to underclock my CPU just so my graphics card would work properly.
What a meme. And it was like, if that was an Xbox, red ring, you're done.
Yeah, it would
Throw it
just
out.
die, and you'd
E-waste.
never know what the hell to do with it. And if you're one of those people who had a computer in the past and threw it out because it wouldn't turn on or you got stuck in a boot loop or something and you hate computers because of that, just fucking don't. Those are 5-minute problems.
Right. It's one phone call to your friend that knows computers.
Yeah. Take it to your local fucking PC shop because those dudes work hard.
Last year, oh, this is a fun story. Do we have time for a story? We have time for a quick story.
Yeah.
You know Sony Freak, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you guys don't know who Sony Freak is, you can check on my YouTube page. We have a Let's Play together. He's also a Twitch streamer and a good friend of mine. We were setting up to go to Massive LAN, and we were like, oh, we could throw some computers together, right? Mind you, we're not
Right.
throwing together the best computers ever. So we got a bunch of these company computers from somewhere. I don't want to say where. And they all came with 500 gigabyte hard drives, Celeron Golds. You know, they weren't great. 8 gigabytes of RAM, blah, blah, blah. So we went through, it was all DDR3. We started putting in, 4 gigabyte sticks here and there, 8 gigabyte sticks here and there, just to get the RAM up. We went into the BIOS, we clocked everything up. We put Thermal Grizzly on all of the CPUs so that way it had a good connection to the heatsink. I took a drill and I drilled out the side panel so that way it had better air escape. And we slapped in RX 570s and GTX 580s in almost all of them. And they sold the first day. Like, we came in with a cart of them with a sign that said computers for sale. They walked over, asked how much. We were like $300 and they were gone.
My God.
Because they're the perfect arcade PC.
You can always go buy an old business PC. There's another option too that I totally forget to mention when I'd have this conversation. You can also go buy a CPU, motherboard, and RAM combo for like 30% off everything together.
Right.
And a lot of people take them and resell them for dirt cheap. Like I'm looking at a buy it now option right now, brand new. A Ryzen 5 5600S and an Asus Prime B450M for $400 and $10 shipping. $410 for a motherboard and a Ryzen 5 5600X. That 5600X alone goes for 400 and then some.
Right. And that motherboard is really nice.
Yeah, there are options out there to get things way cheaper if you go looking for the right parts, if you plan on building one, and that's only if you plan on building one.
My favorite part about being a builder, especially when it comes to like jobs and they're like, "Oh yeah, we can go used," is I get to really flex my muscles because there is such a massive used market where I can get literally whatever I want dirt cheap.
There's an enormous list here of Ryzen 3 and Ryzen 5 1200 and 1400s on motherboards, B450s, X370s, B350s, all lined up in a row, going for a flat looks to be about $200. And that is an insane deal. You get a Ryzen and a motherboard, and all you got to do is spend $100 on RAM, $70 on a case and power supply, and maybe $12 on a fan. And you've built a PC for under $500, cheaper than a console that'll run better than most consoles.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong.
Like I was telling Meep the other day, if you guys don't know who Meep is, we played Destiny together back in the day, and he will be making an appearance later. You can get that 10105F for $100, and you can get a motherboard for $60. You can get 16 gigabytes of RAM right now for $60. You can get a case for $40. Like, it's so cheap, and you can get a graphics card for like $100 off of eBay and just slap it all together with a $40 PSU that's 600 rated, and you are literally sitting pretty for like the next 5 years. You are just good
I
for a full upgrade.
I personally, the motherboard I use is an ASRock B550 Phantom 4, $81.99 right now, $82 on average, $100 on average for this motherboard.
We could talk about this all fucking day.
Yeah, there's so much there. There's a lot to it, and there's an option for everybody.
You're right.
Moral of the story.
Join the Discord. We're
Yeah.
ending the stream. We're at an hour.
And remember to like the video and some scribbles and poke your friend in the eyeball. Don't
Yeah,
do that.
that's where the bell icon is. Join the Discord. If this is a conversation that you're listening to and you're still kind of weaning, or you are interested in the PC space, just jump on over. We'll give recommendations. You don't even have to participate in the conversation. Pay attention to the dedicated gaming chat. There will be drops of us talking about user benchmark scores. There's going to be conversations of us talking about CPUs, the price margins, where we're
There's a
finding
page
games.
dedicated entirely to sales and shit because we're always looking at sales and putting shit up in the pages
Right.
for others in the server. Uh, Things that are going on sale for way cheaper than they'd normally be, things that have dropped in price in the market. That's bundles of games, hardware, things like that. There's a lot going on there.
And we will even debate live. Like, you can just follow along with us debating products live, like the benefits and the negatives and our qualms with a company versus the actual benefits. Like, you can get
It's
all
never
of
a
that
toxic
information.
conversation. Yeah,
No,
and it's never a toxic conversation because everybody's perspective matters.
we don't in our server, it is literally in the rules that this is not a place for argument. It is a place for discussion. You are
If
entitled to your
you
opinion always,
Yeah, and
unless it's
so is the person you're discussing with. Whether you think they're wrong or they're right, it's just that, having a clean, healthy discussion is what makes this so much more interesting for everybody.
there's no point in having an argument. It doesn't lead to anything. Having a discussion can allow you to engage with another person, learn a different perspective, and take accountability for why they feel that way, and
Yeah.
resource it into your arguments later.
Yeah, a bit of healthy debate is fine. A bit of healthy debate is good for everybody. We encourage sharing opinions in a healthy way. That's 90% of your content is this is my opinion. Did you know this was an opinion? Hey, guess what? Opinions exist and people respect each other's opinions.
And
Whoa.
we could throw this all the way back. And then let's throw it all the way back to Resident Evil 4 VR. I got it day one. I had sworn up and down since I got it that it was the definitive best version of Resident Evil 4 you could play. Red
Whereas
did
just
not.
before that, yeah, I still felt that maybe the Wii or the Xbox 360 versions would be better. I wouldn't like the VR port as much as I did. And even but even before that, right, our perspectives were totally different.
Oh, yeah.
Before the game even released, I was hailing it as what would be one of the best VR games ever, and you were very skeptical.
Yes,
It
I
was a
was.
different conversation entirely. That same thing, that was a direct clone of the Resident Evil Village conversation where I was like, it's gonna be fucking beautiful, you wait, and you were like, no. And
It's
then
a
it came out
direct
and you were
clone of
like, this
all
is
of the
awesome.
conversations. It's a clone of literally everything we talk about. You were like, Wolfenstein 2009 is great. And I was like, and then I played it and I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. Then you played it and you're like, it wasn't as good as I remembered.
It was pretty bad. It was pretty shit, not gonna lie.
And that's how we set up the next episode. Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah.